Welcome back to another episode of Cashing Out. I'm your host, Billy Alvaro, my co-host, partner, Wayne Hartard. We are Easy Sell Property Solutions. We're located right over here in Holbrook, New York, right by MacArthur Airport. You can find us online at easysell411.com or by phone 631-400-EASY. Cuz, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. How you doing, bud?
Doing fantastic. Feeling good. We have a special guest on today for our second segment, Mr. Robert Caputo, you handsome guy, handsome devil.
Thanks, Billy.
Attorney at law. Not going to hold it against you.
You too, my friend.
One of the few friends I have that's an attorney. I try to keep my distance from you guys. You're all nuts.
We can be friends with attorneys?
In this case, we can, actually. In this case, we can. There's a few good ones out there, and he's one of them.
Thanks, guys.
So Mr. Caputo is a closing attorney. He represents buyers and sellers all throughout Nassau, Suffolk, Queens, and Brooklyn, and he's sometimes on the other side of our transactions, and we thought he'd be a good guest to take in because you bring a lot, you offer a lot to this conversation because you really are an exceptional closing attorney. I'm not blowing smoke, but you really do, and I kind of hate when you're on the other side because you're very anal, and you kind of really, hold our feet to the fire, which is good because you're representing your sellers or your buyers the right way.
Thanks.
But the reason we have him on the show today is we spoke in our last radio show about the issues people face when they're selling to a buyer who's getting a mortgage versus selling to somebody who's buying for cash. And just to refresh, if you haven't listened to that last radio show, we spoke about appraisal issues, we spoke about inspection issues, and now we're going to get into the meat of the issues when it comes down to C of Os, open permits, and violations.
Right.
So let's get into the, I guess we spoke a little bit about the C of Os. You want to elaborate about anything else about it?
With respect to the C of Os, the open permits and violations, across the board, when you're dealing with an all-cash buyer, they know what they're getting. And most of the time, all the time where I've seen it with cash buyers, they're going to make an offer based on the property the way it exists, with missing C of Os, with violations, because they're incorporating that into the offer that they're making you.
Sure.
When it comes to dealing with the bank may not know until their attorney receives a copy of that title report what, if anything, is missing, certificates of occupancy that are missing, open permits, because sometimes a homeowner has no idea that they've opened up a permit 10 years ago and failed to close it down properly.
That's a great point.
Even violations that come up that they didn't know about. Let's say that they had an illegal basement, okay, and they got rid of the tenant, did everything that they thought would cure the violation. However, that violation still popped up on title when an inspection, the title report showed that the town violated them. So they have to cure that, so it takes time. With respect to C of Os and open permits, aren't too many banks out there, guys, that are going to lend with missing C of Os and with open permits.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a
It is a
problem
problem
for the home sellers because they don't realize they think they're getting more money for the house. They go into contract, and then here we are 90 days later when the title comes in. Listen, there's an open C of O, there's a permit issue, there's a violation issue. That bank is not going to close. And more so, the attorney representing the buyer is not going to allow him to close.
Correct.
Right? I mean, you've seen that in many cases.
I've sat with my buyers, and I tell them what the pitfalls are of closing with missing C of Os. It becomes their problem, and sometimes buyers aren't okay with that.
Yep.
They're just not okay with closing, it becoming their problem.
So, on a contrast now, selling to somebody who's going to buy for all cash, when we go in, we do our homework up front, right? We know when we go into this property, the second story does not have a C of O. There's been an extension off the back. It may or may not have a C of O for it. There's open permits for X, Y, Z. There's always issues that we are aware of, but we add that in to our costs up front. Yeah. We know how much of a pain it's going to be for us to rectify it, and it's all part of the process when we're doing the renovation on the back end. So for us, it's really not an issue. We don't have a mortgage company telling us you can't qualify because there's open C of Os. We know that there's open C of Os. We're buying all cash. It's our cash or our investors' cash with the line of credit, and they don't care if there's open C of Os because we're going to get them rectified prior to selling it in the open market.
And that's a huge, huge difference between going with an all-cash offer as opposed to someone who needs financing.
It's just less stress, less struggle, less hassle.
100%.
It's 100% easier. And really, honestly, Rob, that's the reason why we named our company Easy Sell Property Solutions, is we really try to make the transaction as fast, easy, and hassle-free as humanly possible.
It makes sense.
There's always hiccups that pop up. There's always issues that arise that we're not aware of, but we work through them and we get the deals closed. And that's the bottom line.
Absolutely. 50% of my transactions, I would say, have issues with C of Os. 50%. That's a big number.
That's a big number.
Absolutely.
Huge
Absolutely.
number.
There are many houses across Long Island that, in some form or another, have illegal basements, illegal extensions, dormers. You name it.
If I go back and if we analyze all the properties we buy, I would say it's probably 80% or greater
You might be right.
that when we're buying, that there's title issues but we know about it up front and we don't care.
Well, yeah, we know because we do our due diligence, but a typical buyer does not, and that's why
Sure.
you bring that scenario up. You don't.
Right.
They don't even pull title till how many days later?
Absolutely.
You know, so jump
They're
back.
already in contract.
Yeah, let's say we got through the hurdle of the appraisal. We got through the hurdle of the home inspection. Now you're ready. You could be 25 to 30 days into the transaction already.
Correct.
Titles then gets pulled then, so you're talking 45 to 60 days into it when you actually find out that these open permits and violations are existing.
And all I say is these poor home sellers that think they're making more money, they're really not.
Oh, absolutely
It's
not.
a challenge and it's a pain in the backside. They don't realize all the hurdles they're going to have to go through. Excuse me. And most of the time, they end up canceling the contract with the buyer rather, and they start all over. And they actually go out and find a cash buyer like ourselves.
I'll give you an example of where I was told that it wouldn't be an issue. I had a contract. I represented a seller, and I did my due diligence, called the banker who assured the buyer and the buyer's attorney that the lack of a C of O for a certain item on that house would not be an issue, and they'd be able to close. At the 11th hour, where my client needed the funds from the sale of his house to purchase his house, they said, no, we can't do it.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
Ugh,
That
to
is the
step up.
worst.
Correct.
And see, you went above and beyond as a closing attorney representing them. You did your due diligence.
Correct.
You actually researched it. They gave you an answer.
Correct.
You probably
Spoke
didn't
to the
speak
bank.
to the underwriter.
Well, yeah.
You
You're
probably
absolutely
spoke
right.
to either the loan officer or the processor, and it always ends up in the underwriter's chair. And the underwriter said, "You know what? I don't care what they said. I'm killing it."
Correct. And that's exactly
Holy-
what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
It caused about 2 or 3 months of delay, and the buyer going to another bank, and me having to convince the seller on my purchase to delay a little bit. So
Oh, my
it
God.
caused it was
Domino
catastrophic.
effect. I mean, everything. You had
100%.
other multiple transactions. Everything falls
horrible.
apart. Everybody's losing time, effort, money. You're
Sure.
working.
With an all cash buyer,
That wouldn't have happened.
never.
No, that wouldn't
Never.
have happened.
Yeah,
we
so-
would have came in all cash and just closed.
Folks,
Correct.
folks, we don't care about the CO issues. With this permits, open violations, we don't care. We're going to rectify them, like Billy said, while we're doing the renovation. We're going to tear the house apart. So we have no issues taking care of that. But the typical FHA buyer doesn't have any money to put down. They can't handle it.
Even a conventional buyer.
Yeah, even a conventional.
Correct.
Conventional buyer putting down 20%. They're not going to.
They don't want to deal with that type of stuff.
They don't
either.
want to deal with it.
Nor do
It's
they
really-
want to.
Nor do they want to.
It's not their house
If
yet.
people want to find us, Wayne, what do they do? Hit them up. Tell them out there in Radio Land.
631-400 easy, folks. And if you want to hit us on the web at easysell411.com.
And if you want to have Mr. Computer represent you either on the buy side or the sell side, you can reach him at 631-884-1010-WINS, 1010.
Love the number.
Or online, www.robertcaputolaw.com. And that's CAPUTO law.com. Right.
Just want to jump on one thing that we were talking about, those open permits. How come people do not know that they have open permits?
Well,
I mean, we deal with it all the time, but I mean, I'm sure
a
you
lot of
realize
times,
I think they kind of forget.
or
Bury it and think.
they do, or they rely on their contractor. That they feel the contractor is going to take care of
a good
everything. Okay.
That's actually a great point.
Right.
good point.
Somebody puts in an in-ground pool. You hire a pool company.
Yeah.
Okay. You put the permit in the window. Pool company comes in, digs the hole, puts up the walls, puts in the liner, fills it up. You think, as the homeowner, everything is good to go, but you need a final inspection. Town inspector has to come over, inspect everything, and sign off on it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the homeowner is relying on the contractor or the company to take care of it.
Yeah, I know that firsthand. 18 years ago, I put in a pool. And I know it firsthand because I thought they closed it out. And about 10 years ago, I went to go do something. And the town came in and said, Mr. Alvaro, you do not have a C of O for that pool. I'm like, what do you mean?
your own house.
What do you mean? My pool contractor did it. No, he never closed it out. So I
18
can
years
understand.
ago.
Could you
Exactly.
imagine?
But
Exactly.
how many times did we buy, let's just say, I don't know, a cape in Nassau County where it was 1.5 story and the whole second story was never
Dormered out.
legalized, dormered and never legalized.
That's a-
Grandpa
that's a
did it in the
major
late
problem.
60s, late 70s. We go to close, we're okay with it.
We're
But these people
okay.
they go to close and they're like, oh, now you have an open permit here. They have to come back in. They won't just close out that permit.
Oh, no.
You
It's
got
a
to
whole
start,
process.
folks. You got to start all over again.
What do they have to do? They
That
gotta go
1960s
through-
permit doesn't. It's almost like they wipe it out. You can't close out that permit. Now they want an architect to come in and redraw
Sometimes
it.
the codes change.
Yes.
Codes
Now
change,
you have to meet
architect,
current
surveys.
codes. So when they
Correct.
built
You're
that,
not grandfathered in at that point.
typical Cape, maybe when they built those door gears or that dormer back then, that was okay back then, but that doesn't fly today.
No.
It's unreal what those towns will make you do.
Yeah, the code changes every day, and I don't care what happened 30 years ago. Today's code, 2017-18, it doesn't fly, and you have to reconstruct the whole entire second story.
Sure. Or even if you do an extension, let's say, and the rear setbacks are a lot smaller than they used to be. Now you have to go
And those
through a
have changed, too.
variance.
You're right.
Correct.
Now you go to, oh my God,
We
the
actually
variance
have one right
boards.
now.
Yeah.
Merrick that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
We're trying to get
that's 6 months to a
setbacks.
year for variances.
Correct.
6 months to a year, and a
Correct.
lot of time, paperwork, and money.
Again, something a homeowner just doesn't want to deal with. Doesn't want to deal with waiting around.
It's
Doesn't want to
something
deal
a
with
buyer
spending more money.
doesn't want to deal with because it's a pain in the ass.
Exactly.
There's no way a buyer wants to have to deal with that
Nope.
stress and struggle because it is costly and it is time consuming.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right,
Couldn't
we are
agree
here
more.
today with Mr. Robert Caputo from Caputo Law. The law office is Mr. Robert Caputo. I am Billy Alvaro. This is my partner, Wayne Harta. We are cashing out Easy Sell Property Solutions. We will be right back after these messages.